The Hamilton Industries executive boardroom fell silent as Jessica Hamilton finished her presentation, her perfectly manicured finger pointing directly at me. And that's why Michael Chin can't possibly continue as our finance director. Someone who grew up on food stamps and charity handouts simply doesn't understand the sophistication required to handle billion-dollar accounts. I sat quietly, my expression neutral despite the burning in my chest. 2 months ago, Jessica had become assistant CEO of Hamilton Industries after her father promoted her. It had taken her exactly 3 weeks to dig up my past and start her campaign to remove me. My phone buzzed silently in my pocket, probably another message from Goldman Sachs about the Anderson Group acquisition. But I couldn't check it now, not with every executive in the room staring at me like I was a charity case who'd somehow snuck into their exclusive club. Michael, Robert Hamilton, our CEO, and Jessica's father leaned forward. Would you care to respond to these concerns? I adjusted my simple black tie, a stark contrast to the Hermes accessories adorning the rest of the room. My division's performance speaks for itself. We've increased profitability by 47% since I took over 3 years ago. Jessica's laugh was like cut glass. Anyone can get lucky with a few good quarters. But the Anderson Group merger requires a certain pedigree, someone who understands old money, old traditions. She smiled, all perfect teeth and practiced charm. Someone who didn't have to rely on scholarship handouts to attend business school. The room shifted uncomfortably. My background had always been an open secret at Hamilton Industries. The poor kid who'd climbed his way up from nothing, worked through college stocking shelves at night, earned his MBA on scholarships and merit awards. Until now, it had been seen as admirable. But Jessica was rewriting the narrative. The Anderson Group, she continued, clicking to her next slide, represents the largest luxury retail conglomerate in Asia. They expect a certain caliber of leadership, not someone who used to pack boxes at food banks. What Jessica didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't just packed boxes at the local food bank. I'd also befriended the elderly volunteer who worked there every Tuesday, a quiet man named Gerald Anderson. The same Gerald Anderson who had founded the Anderson Group 50 years ago, and who still controlled 51% of the company's shares. My phone buzzed again. The Goldman Sachs team was probably getting anxious. After all, they'd been working for months on this deal, helping me quietly acquire a controlling interest in Hamilton Industries' biggest client through a series of shell companies. I moved that we reassign the Anderson Group negotiations to someone more suitable. Jessica concluded, someone who can properly represent the Hamilton name. Robert Hamilton nodded thoughtfully. Michael, you've done good work here, but Jessica raises valid points. Perhaps it's time for a change in leadership. I stood slowly, straightening my jacket. Before you make that decision, you might want to check your emails. I believe Goldman Sachs has some relevant information about the Anderson Group. Jessica's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. What are you talking about? If you'll excuse me, I gathered my papers calmly. I have a meeting with Gerald Anderson in 20 minutes. We have some interesting matters to discuss about the future of both our companies. The confusion on their faces was just beginning to turn to concern as I walked out. Behind me, phones started buzzing as the Goldman Sachs announcement hit their inboxes. I could almost hear Jessica's sharp intake of breath as she read the news. Anderson Group announces surprise acquisition of 60% stake in Hamilton Industries. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about letting them discover just how wrong they were all by themselves. And Jessica Hamilton was about to discover just how wrong she could be. The next morning, Hamilton Industries' lobby was in chaos. News crews camped outside, shareholders demanded answers, and Jessica Hamilton's perfectly curated world was crumbling. I sat in my modest office, reviewing the morning headlines. Hamilton Industries stand by Anderson takeover. Wall Street shows hikidi as luxury retail giant seizes control. Mystery executive behind billion-dollar power play. My phone lit up. Gerald Anderson calling. Michael, my boy. His warm voice brought me back to those Tuesday afternoons at the food bank, learning about business and life while we packed boxes for families like mine had once been. I assume they've realized by now. The announcement just hit. Their emergency board meeting starts in an hour. And they still don't know you're behind it. I smiled, watching through my office windows as Jessica stormed past, her designer heels clicking frantically on the marble floors. Not yet. But they will. The last 12 hours had been entertaining, to say the least. After I'd left the boardroom yesterday, Jessica had apparently tried calling every contact she had at Anderson Group, only to discover her old money connections didn't actually know anyone in real power there. My phone buzzed again. This time Sarah Wong, my old friend from business school who now headed our legal department. "Michael," she whispered, "you need to see this. Jessica's trying to push through an emergency resolution to remove you before the board meeting. She's claiming you violated company policy by not disclosing personal connections to Anderson Group." I checked my watch. Let her try. How's the rest of the team? Shocked, scared, excited. Everyone who's ever been talked down to by Jessica is watching this like their favorite drama series. Tell them not to worry. Just make sure everyone's in the boardroom at 10 a.m. At exactly 9:55, I gathered my files and headed to the executive floor. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Board members huddled in corners, whispering urgently. Jessica stood with her father, both their faces pale as they read something on a tablet. "This is impossible," I heard her hiss. "The shell companies, the secret acquisitions, it would have taken years of planning." 5 years to be exact, I said quietly as I passed them. "About as long as I've been running your entire financial operation." The color drained from Jessica's face as the pieces started clicking into place. Robert Hamilton grabbed my arm. "What have you done?" "Me?" I raised an eyebrow. "I simply helped Gerald Anderson diversify his investments. Everything else," I glanced at Jessica, "was your daughter's doing." The boardroom was packed, not just with executives, but with representatives from every department. Jessica had always insisted on having an audience for her power plays. Today, she'd get one. "Before we begin," I set my files on the table. "I believe Ms. Hamilton has a resolution she'd like to present." Jessica straightened, clutching her folder like a shield. "Yes, due to Mr. Chen's undisclosed conflict of interest." "You mean my volunteer work at a food bank?" I interrupted mildly. "The same food bank where I met Gerald Anderson, who became my mentor and friend while your family was busy judging people based on their bank accounts." "This isn't about," she started, but I was already pulling up documents on the main screen. "Actually, it is. Let's talk about conflicts of interest, Jessica. Like how you've been selling company information to competitors, how you used corporate funds for personal expenses, how you falsified your resume to get this position." The room erupted in whispers. Robert Hamilton's face turned an interesting shade of gray. "You can't prove," Jessica's voice cracked. "I can prove everything," I said quietly. "I've been proving things my whole life. To scholarship committees, to professors, to employers. To people like you who thought growing up poor meant I couldn't possibly understand sophistication." I turned to address the board. "Gerald Anderson is on his way here now. As majority shareholder, he has some interesting plans for Hamilton Industries' future. Plans that don't include nepotism or discrimination." Jessica's designer purse slipped from her fingers, spilling its contents across the floor. As she scrambled to pick up her scattered belongings, I couldn't help but notice. The labels were fake. Sometimes the most expensive things in life are the lies we tell ourselves about who we are. The silence in the boardroom was deafening as Gerald Anderson walked in, looking exactly as he had at the food bank. Comfortable slacks, well-worn sweater, and the kind smile that had helped me believe in myself when I had nothing. "Sorry I'm late," he said cheerfully, seeming oblivious to the tension. "Traffic was terrible, though not as terrible as some of the financial reports I've been reading." Jessica, who had finally gathered her scattered belongings, tried to recover. "Mr. Anderson, there's clearly been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Gerald cut in, his voice suddenly sharp, "is that you thought wealth was about designer labels and family names. Real wealth, Ms. Hamilton, is about creating value. Something Michael understood even when he was packing boxes at my food bank." Robert Hamilton found his voice. "Now see here, Anderson. Hamilton Industries has been in my family for 3 generations, and you've nearly bankrupted it in one." I interrupted, pulling up more financial data. "Hidden debt, inflated assets, Unauthorized personal expenses. Would you like me to continue? You ungrateful, Jessica started, but Gerald raised his hand. Michael, show them what real financial management looks like. I switched to a new presentation. While Jessica was busy investigating my background, I was busy saving the company she was destroying. These are the real numbers, the real projections, and the real solution. The board members leaned forward, their expressions changing from shock to understanding as they saw the truth laid bare. Hamilton Industries isn't just overleveraged, I explained. It's technically insolvent. The only thing keeping your creditors at bay was the promised Anderson Group merger. A merger Jessica's discriminatory policies nearly destroyed. But, Gerald smiled. Michael has proposed a restructuring plan that could save everything. Well, almost everything. What does that mean? Robert demanded. It means, I stood up, that Hamilton Industries will survive, but with new leadership. A meritocracy, not a monarchy. Jessica laughed desperately. You can't be serious. You're going to let this charity case run our company? No, Gerald replied calmly. I'm going to let the brilliant financial strategist who turned my $100 million investment into a $4 billion acquisition run our company. The fact that he also understands the value of helping others is a bonus. The next hour was a blur of legal documents and board votes. By lunch, Hamilton Industries had a new CEO, and Jessica and Robert Hamilton had been escorted from the building. As security cleared out their offices, I found something interesting on Jessica's computer, a folder of surveillance photos. She'd had me followed for months, documenting my weekly visits to the food bank. She thought she was gathering evidence against you, Sarah noted, looking over my shoulder. Instead, she was documenting your character. I closed the folder. Have her personal items donated to the food bank seems fitting. Later that evening, as the dust settled, I sat with Gerald in my old office. I decided not to take the executive suite. Some habits of modesty stick with you. You could have told them years ago, Gerald mused. About our relationship, about your role in Anderson Group's success. Would it have changed who they were? I asked. They needed to learn the lesson themselves. And did they learn it? I showed him my phone. Jessica had just posted a bitter social media rant about unqualified diversity hires destroying her family's legacy. Gerald chuckled. Some people never learn. But others. He gestured to the office windows, where employees were celebrating the company's new direction. Others just need a chance to see things differently. The next morning, I called my first company-wide meeting. The changes would be significant: merit-based promotions, educational support programs, comprehensive benefits including food security assistance. Hamilton Industries is becoming Chen Global, I announced. Not because I want to erase the past, but because we need to build a different future. As I outlined the changes, I noticed something. People weren't just listening, they were hoping. For many, it was the first time they'd seen someone like them, someone who knew struggle, who understood hardship, in a position of real power. 1 year later, Chen Global was featured in Forbes, from Food Bank to Fortune 500. How Michael Chen revolutionized corporate culture. The article mentioned that every Tuesday afternoon, the CEO still volunteers at his local food bank. Some habits, after all, are worth keeping. Jessica Hamilton now works as a junior analyst at a small firm in Ohio. Her father retired to Florida. Their story became a cautionary tale in business schools about the dangers of prejudice and privilege. But this story isn't about their fall. It's about what rises when we judge people by their character instead of their circumstances. Last week, a young intern stopped me in the hallway. Is it true? She asked nervously. That you used to use food banks. Use them, I corrected gently. Then volunteered at them. Now I help fund them. That's how progress works. She smiled, standing a little straighter. Sometimes the greatest power isn't in hiding who you are, but in showing others who they can become. Gerald still teases me about keeping my old office. Most CEOs want the corner suite, he'll say. But I like being close to where the real work happens. After all, true value isn't created in corner offices. It's created by people who understand that wealth isn't about what you have, but what you build for others. That's the lesson Jessica Hamilton never learned, but it's the one I teach every day. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving that there's a better way to be right.